All right, our lesson today is lesson number 8, and the title of it is Ordaining Elders. Ordaining Elders. Our memory verse is Titus 1:7. For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon anger, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. Okay, we'll run into that verse here in a little bit. But just keep that in your mind there. I'm going to read the junior emphasis here, and it says, all of God's people are to live without sin in their lives. You know, that's not just a statement. That's a fact of living. You have to live without sin in your life, or you're not part of God's family. You're not part of God's people. If you have sin in your heart, and you know that it's sin. Now, you know, if we do something we don't know that it's wrong, then that's different. But, you know, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about knowingly what sin is. Well, the Bible gives us a description of what sin is. You know, he that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. And so, you know, when we know that there's something wrong in our life, we need to get that out just as quick as possible. And the best way to live, even if you're not a Christian, is without sin. Amen. Is without sin. But in order to be God's people, you have to be saved. You have to give your heart and life over to Jesus. Let Him clean you up, and then continue without sin. And then you will be considered God's people, a part of God's people there. All of God's people are to live without sin in their lives. This is especially true of those who lead. And that's the reason why there's qualifications in picking elders, bishops, pastors, evangelists, apostles, whatever it is. That's the reason why there's qualifications on there. They are to be examples. You know, we as people of God, whether we hold an office in the congregation, in the church, or whether we're just lay people, we are examples to those people that's outside, that's out there. We are examples. So it doesn't make any difference. Brother Bayless doesn't live any holier than what we should live. You know, holiness is being holy is being holy. And there's not degrees of holiness. I know a lot of us will say, well, you know, he's more holy than we are. No, if he's living according to God, he's holy. If we're living according to God, we're holy. Now, he may be further down the road than we are. He might know more things than we do. You know, a person might know that's been around, that's lived a holy life for 50 years, will know more than a newborn Christian. But they're not more holy. They're holy. Just like the newborn Christian is holy. And so we have to, but we are all examples. What kind of an example are we living? Or what kind of an example are you leaving? You know, in the politics, you know, they say, you know, we're leaving a carbon footprint, you know, and how much fossil fuel we burn, or one thing and another. Well, what kind of a footprint are we leaving for Jesus? That's what's important. You know, we need to leave the footprint that leads to Jesus, and that the people out there can see, oh, you know, that guy and his wife, they go to church every day, every Sunday. Not every day, but every Sunday. You know, and every Wednesday night, They go to church, you know. Well, that's leaving a footprint. That's leaving a footprint. That's leaving an example of how we are. And then as we live through the week, how are we living? You know, that's part of the footprint too. Do you get mad at your neighbor because they throw the stick over in your yard, or do you get aggravated at this or that or whatever? That's still part of the footprint, you know. We need to have love within our heart. And I know if somebody throw a stick in Jesus' yard, I don't think he would fly off the handle. So, you know, pick it up, throw it in the trash, go on about your business, you know. That's part of being an example. Christ is the ultimate example for us all. You know, I like to, Brother Bayless brought this out years ago, I like to think that Jesus is our standard. Brother Bayless brought that out several years ago. And I thought, you know, that's right. Jesus being the standard. You know, a lot of people, they'll say, well, what kind of standard do you hold, you know? Well, whatever Jesus holds, that's what I hold, you know. A lot of them will say, well, you know, what kind of a standard? And they're thinking about, well, how long does the women wear their hair? How long do they wear their dresses? How short does the men wear? The tie. Brother Bayless pointing to his tie. What, do you wear a tie or don't you wear a tie, you know? You know, well, my standard is Jesus. My standard is Jesus. And yes, you don't see me with a tie on and Brother Bayless with a tie on, but we have no conflict between that. That's not a problem with us, either one of us. But Jesus being our standard is what's most important. That last sentence that I read, Christ is the ultimate example for us all. I've got a verse there, 1 Peter 2:21 and 22. It's not in your quoted there, so I'll read it to you. For even hereunto were we called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that we should follow his steps, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth. Now that second part is the part that I want you to catch hold of. Who did no sin, which is required of me, which is required of you. Neither was guile found in his mouth, which is required of me, which is required of you. You know, and Jesus being the leader and being our example, setting the footprints for us to follow in so that people can follow his footprints, see how I followed Jesus' footprints, they can follow the same footprints. Don't follow my footprints, but follow Jesus' footprints. And so that's how we become evangelists. Is that a word? An evangelist for Jesus. That's how we do that. I don't know if, I guess evangelist is plural, so it'd be with an S on it. So, but we being an evangelist, one evangelist, and being for Christ. I'll change that to that way then. Okay, we'll get started in our verses there, Titus 1 through 3, and it's got some words underlined in here, and if you have a quarterly, take note of that. I'm going to try and point it out. Paul, a servant, which is underlined, of God, and an apostle, underlined, of Jesus Christ, according to the faith, underlined, of God's elect, and the acknowledging, underlined, of the truth, underlined, which is after godliness, which is underlined. Second verse, in hope, underlined, of eternal life, underlined. Both of those words there. Which God, that cannot lie, promised, underlined, before the world began, but have in due times manifest his word, underline, through preaching, underline, which is committed unto me according to the commandment, underline, of God our Savior, underline. Okay, I broke in several times, but I wanted you to get this. It's very important, the words that he had underlined there. This is rather a long introduction. This is the introduction to the letter. And he's bringing out different things there that's very important. Who he is, who God is, and what the battle is in the things that or the recognition of what is going on here. This is rather a long introduction. The next verse that we're going to read is also part of the introduction. We read 3 of them. We're going to read the 4th one here in just a little bit. 4 verses, but only one sentence. You know, we used to have to outline. Is that what you call it? Break down a sentence, outline a sentence. Diagram a sentence. That's it. Thank you. Diagram a sentence. I would hate to diagram this sentence here. It would be a hard one to diagram. It'd take about 3 pages of paper, yes. But, it all come together and flowed together. And, it wasn't nothing that was a put on to Paul, but he had so much to say about what was going on here, such as being a servant of God. Okay, he recognized that. But then talking about the faith, talking about the acknowledging of the truth, godliness, the hope of eternal life, it flowed so much. Promises that God had made, the word through the preaching, and following the commandments of God, it flowed in his life like a running brook, I mean, he knew what he was talking about here because he lived it. He didn't have to conjure up, well, what am I going to say to Timothy or to Titus here to really make it sound good? It flowed in his life. And God inspired him to write exactly what flowed in Paul's life. And when something's flowing in our life, when something is we're real familiar with it, we've experienced time and time again, it's easy to talk about, and what you're talking about, like Paul here as he was writing that letter to Titus there. All 4 verses here, but only one sentence. In the first 3 verses, Paul speaks of the hope of eternal life, which God that cannot lie promised before the world even began. Before the world even began. Before the foundation of the world. Isn't that what he's saying? Before the foundation of the world. But that's what he was talking about there. It was promised before the world began. Let's go on to that 4th verse. To Titus, my own son after the common faith. 3 words here. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ our Savior. Period. There's the end of the sentence right there. There's the end of it. Here he calls Titus his own son. We must understand he refers to his spiritual son, one whom he had likely introduced to the Lord. Now this is Titus, remember. Titus is different than Timothy. This is a different guy. Remember, Timothy was brought up by his grandma and mother, but this is Titus. Titus, he was a Greek. Titus was an uncircumcised Greek. The verse we read there was in Galatians 2 and 3. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. So he was a Greek. He was a Gentile. He was one of them old dirty Gentiles. But you know, that's the way the Jews looked on him at one time. But now, Peter saw a vision one time, and the Lord told him that there's no one dirty and unclean now as far as that all people can come to me now. That's what he's talking about, all people. I think most of us here in the congregation is Gentiles. I'd say probably 100% of us are Gentiles. But you know, we can experience the good things that God has for us. Because he came for the Jews? Yes, he did. He came for the Gentiles? Yes, he did. He came for all people. All people. And that's what he's getting at here. Titus was a Gentile. Was Paul a Gentile? No, he wasn't. He was a Jew. He even tells what tribe he was from. He was from the Benjamin tribe of Benjamin is where he came from. And then he goes on and says that he was kind of like a leader in the Jewish synagogue and all, because he was a Pharisee of the Pharisees is what he was, and he was a Jew. But you know, he didn't look down on Titus as being an old Gentile. No, he was a Christian. He was a soul. There was a soul there, and he probably helped or led Titus into Christianity is probably what he did, because he called him his son. He says to Titus, my own son, spiritual son he's talking about, after the common faith. That's what he says, after the common faith. Well, that's what he's referring to as the Son. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ our Savior. I can't supply you, Paul's more or less telling him, I can't supply you with grace, mercy, and peace. But he says, I know somebody that can. You know somebody that can. And it's the same person who we're talking about. And that's God the Father, the Lord Jesus Christ our Savior is what he's talking about there. Trying to give Titus encouragement in that. Trying to hold him up and say, you know, out of this here, continue to fight the good fight of faith, Titus. That's what I kind of see out of that there. Although it don't say that, but I know that that's what Paul was kind of relaying to continue in the good fight of faith there. Verse 5. For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldest set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in every city as I have appointed thee. Crete was an island, long, narrow island in the Mediterranean Sea. It was south of where they were right now, but south of Greece, I think, and maybe just a little bit east. But anyway, it was in the Mediterranean Sea. Paul and Titus had both labored for God in Crete, setting up churches in several cities. Now Paul is explaining why he left Titus in Crete. It was to ordain elders in each of the churches there. Paul had confidence in Titus. You know, Titus had a job of assuring Paul of that confidence that he had in him. You know, if Titus was kind of a wild man or something like that, or kind of flighty and one thing and another, do you think Paul would have chosen him to be the leader? I don't think so, because here in a little bit we're going to read the qualifications, you know. But Titus was a man that was on fire for God, just like Paul was. Trained up by Paul, probably. Had some training from Paul anyway. But Paul had confidence in him. And you know, we have to have confidence. We have to have confidence in our leaders. That's one thing we have to do. We have to have confidence in our leaders. How can we have confidence in them? Help them to stay on the straight and narrow way. Well, yeah, but how do we do that? We'll pray for them. For one thing, pray for them. Be like Berea was. As maybe they bring out a message or a teaching, I'm including myself in this, teaching, make sure it's being taught right. Make sure it lines up with the Bible. If it don't, then we need to, hey, something just not quite right here. I don't know if it's me or if it's you, but something just, I'm not seeing something right. What's going on? We can have an adult conversation when it comes to not seeing things alike. We can have an adult conversation. You get children together that don't see alike, it winds up a fist fight a lot of times, And I'm sorry to say, but in politics you see even worse, But, we as Christians can have an adult conversation even though we don't see alike. Man, a lot of times things can be straightened out, and it's a lot of times just a minor misunderstanding. But anyway, Paul had confidence in Titus because Titus had earned that confidence. He had lived according to the way God wanted him to live. If we will keep our eyes on Jesus and follow the Holy Spirit to all that we know, people will have confidence in us. God will have confidence in us. We can have confidence in ourselves. Just keeping our eyes focused on Jesus and living according to that way. We'll go into verse 6 there. If any be blameless. Okay, now this is the qualifications for the bishop, elders, and all. Verse 6. If any be blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly. Our memory verse, I'm getting ready to read it right now. For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angered, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. Verse 8, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate. Verse 9, holding fast the faithful words as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. Okay, there's a lot in this. I'm going to start with the word gainsayers, in case we don't know what a gainsayer is. To deny or oppose, speak against. Somebody that's against us, against God. If we're for God, then they're going to be against God. But somebody that speaks against God. That's what he's talking about is gainsayers there. Somebody speaking against. If you look that last word in verse 8, temperate. Okay, maybe somebody don't know what temperate means. Well, we have it in our vocabulary. It says self-controlled, exercising moderation and self-restraint. Moderate in appetite, actions, speech, whatever else you might add to that. And then self-restraint. I wrote that down too. So, there was some words there that maybe we might have a problem with, but as far as knowing the meaning of them. But, it's written here. It's written for a purpose. It's written here because we have to be just exactly what they were talking about here on all them qualifications there. In these verses, he explains what type of persons were to be ordained. And it says in another place to covet the best gifts. You know. Okay, say I'm sitting here, I'm a lay person, I'm newborn Christian, and okay, I would like to hold an office in the church. Okay, you can work on these right away. You can work on them right away, and you may not catch the pastor's eye or the ones that could appoint you to a position, but you know whose eye you're going to catch? You're going to catch God's eyes. That's what you're going to catch. And when you catch God's eye, God's going to impress upon that person, hey, there's a young man or a young woman or whatever that would work in my kingdom, and that is called. And that's what we need to do. Every one of us need to live this way. It doesn't make any difference whether you're the pastor or whether you're the floor sweeper. It doesn't make any difference. Every one of us. In these verses, he explained what type of persons were to be ordained. Really, God has but one standard. It doesn't make any difference whether it's the pastor or whether it's the lay person. He has one standard, That's what he's talking about. But it's especially important that leaders be good example. I wrote on here, Paul was always consistent. Paul was always consistent. And that's good for us too. We need to stay consistent. Whether we're in church or whether we're out grocery shopping or at work, we need to be the same. We need to be the same. Because if we live one way in church, we live so holy and pious in church, and then out there, we kind of go to some places we're not supposed to go. What does that tell the world? Hypocrite. That's exactly. And that's exactly what you would be a hypocrite then. And and people out in the world picks up on it really quick. They really could pick up on it in a hurry. So, this is good ammunition for us all. I'm going to read that again. If any be blameless, without guile. Yes. Who is any is the question. If any be blameless, who is the any?
How long does a person need to be saved before they can be ordained to an office of bishop?
How long does a person have to be saved in order to hold the office of a bishop? If any be blameless. Any. God, my answer to that, God will appoint that person when they are ready. Regardless of how long or short they may have been a Christian. It says any, if any. Now, obviously, you take someone that's been out in deep sin, they get saved. More than likely, they're not going to be called to be a pastor the next day. Now, it could happen that way, but more than likely. But anyway, it says here, if any be blameless. If any be blameless. Regardless of how long. Of all these qualifications. That's right.
The reason I say that is how long did Paul and Titus work on Crete?
Yeah.
6 months, 2 years? We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
It was not a very, very long time. But as they traveled, let's say, from one end of the island to the other, and in the towns, they raised up congregations in homes.
Right.
Then it was time to appoint elders, because what happens to a church if there's no leaders?
Right. Right. They're going to fall apart. Well, if a congregation does not have a leader, then they're going to fall away. How long did Paul and Titus work together in this, on this island Crete? We don't know. But as they worked, they set elders up and set different ones up, is what Brother Bayless was bringing out. And setting up leaders so that whether they be in a church or whether they be in a home or whatever, they set up leaders then. But they picked out blameless leaders. They picked out blameless. They picked out husbands of one wife leaders. They picked out ones that had faithful children, not accused of riot or unruliness. You don't want a riotous pastor or an unruly pastor. Or a pastor that can't rule his family. That's true. You know, there's consistency there. Yeah. And then it goes on and says, for a bishop must be blameless. Well, that's just what he said the sentence before, the verse before. Blameless. Blameless again. As the steward of God. Not self-willed. Not soon angered. You know, anger gets a lot of people in trouble. Anger gets...
It hurts the work of the church. If you get anger coming out of the pulpit to people, you're going to drive them away, you're going to hurt them.
Right. You get anger out of the pulpit, you're going to drive people away, is what Brother Bayless is bringing out there. You get anger coming out, it's going to drive people away rather than encourage them to come in. The next one, not given to wine. Okay? Why? Because that can cause a lot of silliness. It can cause a lot of problems. No striker. Okay, that kind of fits in with anger. Because usually when anger, pretty soon it goes to blows, you know. So that's what he's talking about. Not given to filthy lucre. Or in other words, not coveting filthy lucre. Not coveting money. That's what he's talking about there. Very few real pastors, evangelists, apostles that are true ministers of God get rich at it. They don't get rich at this is one profession you don't really get rich at. But you know, it's not what we're building up here in our bank account here on earth, but it's the bank account up there is what really counts. That's a whole another lesson there. But a lover of hospitality, being hospitable to people, you know, ready to help people. That's what it is. Isn't that what a hospital does? Helps people. You know, usually a lot of sick people will go to the hospital. What are they wanting? They're wanting help. You know, they're sick and they're wanting to get better. So they go to a hospital, which is a kind of a root word of this, hospitality. Well, you know, people come to Jesus because they need help. And you know, that's what he's talking about there. A lover of hospitality. A lover of good men. Sober. Just. Isn't that kind of like blameless? Holy. Isn't that like blameless? Holy. Just. You know, holy and just is two words that's a lot alike. And temperate. Holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught. That he, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught. Okay, who taught him? Did Paul teach him? Yeah, Paul might have taught him. But it all comes from God. That's the teacher we're talking about. Now, we might receive the word of God through a man. A man might explain it to us, but it's the God's word that he's talking about. That he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. To exhort, to show them, hey, see where you're wrong there. See where you need to be straightened out. Exhortation to gainsayers means that they need to change their ways. Exhortation to Christians is to encourage and help. I think, I didn't look up exhort, but I think I'm on the right track on that. When you exhort Christians, you're helping them, you're encouraging them to do that. And to convince the gainsayers is to convince that, hey, you're going the wrong way. You need to turn around and go the right way. And because then to Christians, we don't have to convince Christians normally. We may have to help convince them. We may have to, it's still encouragement is what it is in that. So it's very important that we let the Holy Spirit lead when we talk, because sometimes we can get ourselves into trouble. That last that I wrote there, Paul was always consistent. I don't want to get away from that either, because, Paul didn't have a message for Timothy and then had a complete message for Titus. Right. He had the same message. It was still the message of God. What he required of Timothy, he required of Titus. What he required of Titus, he required of Timothy. And not him requiring that, but it's God requiring. What God required of Timothy and Titus, he requires of us. Let's bring it down, right down to the nitty-gritty. He requires it of us too. And so that's the reason why when we read the Bible, it was written 2,000 years ago, but it's still good for us. It's still good for us. Even though the world out there has changed so dramatically, the Bible is still the foundation we need to build our living on, is the foundation of the Bible. Verse 10, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame that people want to be unruly? People, vain talkers. People want to deceive other people. Why do you want to do that? To drag them down to their level a lot of times. Especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake. Paul warned Timothy in the previous book about these false teachers. Paul is warning Titus here of false teachers. We read these verses, and Paul is warning us of false teachers also. We got a double dose of it. We got Timothy's dose and we got Titus's dose both. So we have to watch out for false teachers. We have to watch out for false teachers because they're out there. They haven't disappeared with time. If anything, it seems like they've gotten worse. And, we have to be careful in this. It seems like everywhere Paul went and preached the Gospels, others followed and spread false doctrines. Well, where did them false doctrines come from? The devil. The devil is there using them people to drive a wedge between Paul and the work of God. Paul and God, Oh yeah, he would have loved to drive the wedge between Paul and God. and got Paul. But he was driving a wedge between Paul and God and the congregation, trying to get the congregation. As his first object was to keep the congregation. But, the devil's always out there fighting. He's always out there. It seems like everywhere Paul went and preached the Gospels, others followed and spread false doctrine. One popular thing that they taught was that in order to be saved, and this is what he was talking about in the verses there, it was necessary to keep all the Old Testament rules regarding feast days and other rituals. That was what was the problem at this time. In order to be a Christian, and the devil will use that. In order for you to be a Christian, you've got to follow the Old Testament rules too. See, that's what the devil was using. No, it's not that way. Jesus has come. The Messiah has come. Jehovah has come. Jehovah is here. And that's done away with. That was a type back then. And it's fulfilled. It's fulfilled now. We walk in Jesus' footprints. We walk in Jesus' way, and we'll be okay. Titus must do whatever is necessary to expose these false teachers before they did more harm. And, they have to be exposed. They have to be cornered, so to speak. They have to be pointed out. Hey, that's not right. You want to follow the what you can eat and what days you can do things on and sacrifices. And yes, that was for them back then. I'll agree with you, but not anymore. It's hurting our heart and life over to Jesus. All right, verse 12. One of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, "The Christians are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies." That's the Cretans. "This witness is true. Wherefore, rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth." Historians claim that the charge, "Christians are always liars," had been made by a Crete poet, and I'm not saying that right, but a poet from Crete, and philosopher about 600 years before. Titus must be very positive in his teaching. Otherwise, Jewish fables and men's commandments would bring confusion and turn them from the truth. Or the Greeks would classify him as one of the liars. I'm adding this. The Greeks would classify him as one of the liars. We need the wisdom of God. That's what we need. That's what we need. There was a poet that brought that out and said that. But there's been people that has been looked down on by other people. I'm not going to bring out any people, but some people will look down on other people. But the people that are being looked down on, that's receiving the looking down on, they are just as important to God as the ones that's looking down on them. God looks on us not as how we look outwardly, but He looks on the heart. And I think maybe Samuel had a little bit of a problem with that when he went to anoint Jesse's son. Jesse had, I think 6 or 7 sons. And God revealed to Samuel it was one of them boys. Well, the first one came by. I think I'm telling the truth, telling the story right. But the first one came by, big scrapping guy, and Samuel says, ooh, that's got to be him, you know. And God told Samuel, said, nope, that's not him. Next one come by, and boy, that's got to be him. Samuel thought, no, that's not him. Well, matter of fact, God told Samuel, slow down. Samuel, you know. And this was a man of God, Samuel was, you know. God's telling him, says, you're looking on the outward side. I'm looking on the heart. And finally, he brought the last boy that was there by, and nope, wasn't him. Jesse, have you got another son? Yeah, I've got one out to tending sheep. Well, bring him in. We ain't going to eat. We're not going to eat until we bring him in. And as soon as he walks in, God says, that's the man right there. You know, he wasn't a big scrapping boy. You know, he was kind of a little more of a, I kind of picture him as a smaller built fella, but that's who God wanted. Yeah, young fella, 15, 16 years old. Not all that, not a big warrior like you might think, you know, but you know, that's who God wanted. And you know, I don't think if Samuel was left up to him to pick out the guy, he'd probably been the last one to pick out. But you know, God said, no, that's the man that I want right there.
He was the last one he picked out.
It was, huh? He was the last one. Yeah. But anyway, he was the last one. But you know, that's who God wanted, because he could see inside. He could see our, and we're the same way. We may not look like much. I don't look like much on the outside, but God looks on the heart. That's what he.
Well, and if you think, when it comes down to it, the brothers were there, but they weren't willing to fight the Philistine, the giant Goliath. But then David, it rose up anger in him that they would let him insult God.
Later on in life, that's what happened. These boys did not want to fight him, but God impressed upon David to go down and fight that giant, and we know what happened after that. Yes, that's good. That's a good point. That's a good point. God looks on the heart there. Verse 15, unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, but even their mind and conscience is defiled. This verse does not mean that things morally or sinfully wrong are suddenly okay. That's not what it means. Just because one has been saved, that doesn't change it either. There were, however, many restrictions due to the diet and other rituals under the Old Testament law that are no longer applicable. Notice how God used Peter's vision to break down long established barriers between people of all nationalities. He goes on and says, this should settle the question forever. All souls matter. All souls matter. God does not want one single soul to be lost. No matter how bad of a person or how a person has thrown their life away, God does not give up on that soul at all. God says, or it's written down here, all souls matter. Verse 16, they profess that they know God, but the works they deny Him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. What we say means nothing unless we follow through with our deeds and actions. You know, we could go out and preach how people ought to live, how, you know, all the good things on Sunday. And I brought this out already. We can do this on Sunday and then go live however we want to on Monday and Tuesday and the rest of the week. This is what he's talking about. what we say means nothing. That Sunday morning that we're talking about it, unless we follow through with the deeds and actions. In other words, live out what we preach. You know, you hear a lot of people say, you know, well, do as I say. Do as I say. You've heard that. Not as I do. That's not good ammunition. That's not. If you do what you're supposed to do, then what you say only backs up what you say. You need to live it first. Let me put it that way. We need to live it first and then preach.
Yes.
Then. And then when we're through preaching, continue to live.
Yes, sir.
That way. That's what we need to do. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. That's found in James 2:18. So it's very important that we live according to what God has for us. Let Him lead us. There's nothing wrong with allowing God to lead us. We have to. You know, people like to be leaders. There's some people likes to be leaders. But you can't lead God. You're not going to lead God. You have to be a follower when it comes to God. I'm going to read this points to consider, being we have just a little bit of time here. The second part, the second dot there. God has but one standard, and that is holiness. Pastors, evangelists, teachers, and even the newest convict, all must live a sin-free life. You know, that's what God cleaned us up. He took the sin all out of our life, all out of our heart. He wants us to continue to live that way. Why clean us all up just to get dirty again? God don't want that. He wants us to continue to live a sin-free life. There is no respect of persons with God. It doesn't make any difference whether you're Samuel, whether you're David, whether you're Paul, or whether you're Joe Blow over here. As long as he's a Christian, he fits right in. Or whether it's me or whoever it is. God loves us all just the same. There is no respect of persons with God. All souls belong to God and matter to God, and He died for all. Please notice, we say, oh, all souls rather than all lives. We are a soul. Did you know that? We all have a soul there. You know, our body, you know, may our body don't look the same as the other bodies. You know, some of us may have handicaps, and others don't. Some may be built scrapping tough and all. Others are weaklings. That does not make any difference to God. What makes the difference is that soul, is what he's talking about. God forgive those who place too much attention on the appearance of bodies and neglect the souls. Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, all go unto one place. All are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. That's in Ecclesiastes there. 3:20, maybe what it is there. Ecclesiastes 12:7 is, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. See, that's the point of it. A lot of people take so much emphasis on the body. Well, what's going to happen rather than their soul? Well, what's going to happen to the body? Well, the Bible here tells me that it's going to go to the dirt anyway. It's going to go to the ground. It's the soul that's more important, and it's going to live forever. That's what we have to be concerned about there. Shame on all who judge others by their countenance, height of stature, or any outward appearance, for the Lord looketh on the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. For the Lord said unto Samuel, this is what I was bringing out earlier, look not on his countenance or on the height of his statue, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. And that's still prevalent today. This was written probably 3,000 years ago, but it's still prevalent today, that God still looks on the heart. God still looks on the soul. God still is not a respecter person. He's still there. Between the lines there, he who does not teach holiness does not teach the gospel. Sounds to me like holiness and gospel walks hand in hand. Hand in hand. They're good buddies. Holiness and gospel is good buddies. It's the good news too. And then the other line there, God wants our precious time, not our spare time. You know, how many people well, if I've got time for God, I'll communicate with God. Or I'll go to church if I've got time. If I don't have anything else going on, well, I'll go to church. No, he wants our precious time. Why? Why should we give him our precious time? Well, when you become a Christian, you realize how precious he is. You realize how much he means to you. And there it is no sacrifice at all to be able to give him your precious time there. Okay, I'll leave that with you. And next Sunday, the grace of God hath appeared to all is the title of our lesson. So I'll leave it with you. And God bless each and every one of you.